everybody, welcome to card number 24. So I'm using this Stamp of the Smiley Santa image, and I stamped it onto craft cardstock with my Memento Tuxedo Black ink, and I'm going to color them in again with Copic markers. I've had a lot of people really interested in that since my other card doing that and the one I post on my blog. So I'm enjoying it too. I think it gives it a totally different look. It's kind of fun. So I'll be hopefully doing more and more of them just for the heck of it. So for his skin, I used E21 and then E13. And then for his cheeks, I used R22, which is a little bit darker. And again, that's something you have to kind of figure out when coloring on craft is everything just looks different. It looks darker when it goes on because it shows up more when it's wet, but then it dries lighter, and with the craft cardstock, everything just looks different. So it just takes practice, and yeah, I haven't done a whole lot of it, so I'm just kind of winging it as I go along, and so far so good. So always remember to kind of, if you're not happy with it, let it dry and then go back to it because it will look different when it's dry too. So once I did his face, I went on to his hat and I used R24 and then R27 and then R29 and then blended that out with the middle, which is the R27, and finally blended everything together with the R24, just quick and easy. And then for the holly leaves, I used G14 and then added a little bit of G07, and that I didn't blend out because I wanted that little bit of definition. So that was it for the Copic coloring. And then, oh yeah, I added the little bit of R22 to I guess that's his mouth. I wasn't 100% certain if that was supposed to be his mouth or just, yeah, that's kind of what it looked like, but I wasn't 100% sure on that, but once I colored it in, it looked better. And then I just took a bit of C3 just around the hat band and the poof on the end of the hat just to give it that tiny bit of definition. And then, of course, I went and took a white pencil crayon and started coloring in all of the hair and the whites of his eyes, and that's what I love the most about the craft, at least for these Christmas cards, because like look how much the white pops. It is so much fun. So I kind of wanted to give a little bit of definition though between the hat and his like hair and beard. I wanted the hair and beard to stand out a bit more. So I did use some odorless mineral spirits and a blending stump on that, just trying to smooth out just on his hat. And then I tried also on some of the lines to kind of go over it to try and get that black definition back, but it didn't really work very well, so I won't be doing that next time. So if you're really worried about it, I suppose you could go over it with a fine line like a Copic multi-liner, but it wasn't bugging me enough that I was going to keep fiddling with it. So I left it as is and then trimmed out the image. And then my pattern paper is from the Bo Bunny Rejoice pack. And that's another one I came across in my stash that I bought last year. Actually, the stamp is from last year as well, but I'm pretty sure it's still available if people are interested. So I decided to make this a big card. So it's a 5.5-inch square card. And I got my layout figured out and die cut the main area with my MFT stitched circle stacks dies, and then matted that with just a green cardstock circle. This is actually Stampin' Up's old glorious green from forever ago that I've still got in my stash. And then for embellishments, I grabbed my Martha Stewart jumbo snowflake punch. I know there's a specific name for it, but it totally escapes me, and I never did label my punches, so yeah. Just punched out a couple snowflakes from white cardstock, and then I was able to pull up the circle a little bit and just slip one of the snowflakes under there because I didn't want them both completely showing, just because I've got quite a lot going on the card as it is. And then I wanted to use something to embellish the center of them, so I grabbed a Wild Cherry MFT button, and this is usually how I use my buttons. I literally just dump them on my desktop and then wade through them because it's fun. So picked out a couple buttons that I liked, and then I grabbed some hemp that I had shown just in my last video. I just got these little rolls of American Crafts hemp. So I took the new bright green stuff and threaded it through the buttons and tied it in a bow. And then I'm just using my sticky dots that I get from Jody. And for smaller buttons like this, I just stick on an edge, peel off the backing, and then kind of fold it over like I'd shown a second ago there, so that they completely cover the back of the button and don't stick out at all. And that's how I attach them to my cards. And then I used dimensionals to attach the Santa, so he's popped up a little bit. And then for the sentiment, I'm using my Christmas Sentiments 2 stamp set, and I just grabbed a piece of red cardstock and used the embossing buddy on it so you can see the powdery residue on there, just so that there's no static for the embossing powder to cling anywhere else. And I inked up one of the sentiments from the set with some white pigment ink, and then just using my stamp positioner so that I get it stamped straight right across the bottom there. And once I've got that, I'm going to use my detail white embossing powder. And there is a difference between detail and regular, and detail is just a finer powder, which works perfectly for any more detailed images or fine line sentiments like that. And then melted that with my heat tool, trimmed it down with my paper trimmer, and then figured out how I wanted it to go on my card front. So I was going to notch both ends as flag ends, but then decided to only do the one and then have it flat against the edge. So just use my scissors, cut that end off, and then just adhered that to the card front. And then flipped her over and put tape on the back of the ribbon so that my ETG just glides over that. It's just a lot quicker so it doesn't get caught up on the ribbon there. And then I'm going to attach that to my card base. So I get asked a lot with card sizes, and I do forget lately. I've been forgetting to update people on that. But yeah, this is a 5.5-inch square card, and that's the biggest size I usually do because that's the size you can get from an 8.5 by 11-inch piece of cardstock. So that's the biggest card you can make with that. So after I had attached that to the card base, I went and grabbed my Posca white paint pen and just added a few little highlight marks just to make everything kind of pop, which is, again, another thing I love when you color on craft is when you add the highlights with this white, it just makes it pop. And then I couldn't leave well enough alone, so I started adding, I just kind of went along each line all around the beard and the edges of the hat band and the little poof, and just add little pops of white. And I just love how it just pops out. It just gives it that extra something. So much fun. So quickly just scribbled those on, and that was it for the card front. So then on the inside of the card, I took that piece of red cardstock again, and then a stamp from my Christmas Card Versus 2 set. And again, used my stamp positioner and the pigment ink, and stamped it onto the cardstock with the pigment ink. And for those of you who haven't seen some of my other videos when I do this, I prefer to emboss these images because once the pigment ink dries, it's just not as vibrant. And I have not yet come across a white ink that is vibrant enough, in my opinion. So that's why I always just use my white embossing powder and heat set it, and it's perfect. It just pops. So again, trimmed that off, and then I always rub my fingers over it afterwards to remove any of the powder residue because you could see it dulled the cardstock a little bit. And then on the inside of the card, I die cut another large stitched circle for an area to write something, and then figured out what side I wanted the sentiment to go on, and then quickly trim that end again with my scissors. And then I'm just going to get everything adhered into place, and that's it for the inside of the card. So just like so. And then of course, once I get that into the card, I could not, again, leave well enough alone. I think people think I'm going nuts lately posting cards that don't have ribbon and tons of stickles, but I've been trying to mix it up a bit. Like, this is my 24th Christmas card, which I think I'm doing pretty good, but yeah, trying to not do everything the same, because who would want to watch all my videos over and over again of the same thing over and over again? So I did grab stickles for this, though. I had to. I just wanted that little bit of extra texture, so I grabbed my frosted lace stickles. So it gives it a little bit of something without a ton of glitter. And yeah, that's all there was to it. So there'll be a link below to my blog post with links to all the supplies used. And thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.